Okay, so we've reached 11 o'clock. We would like to get started on our webinar. We're expecting a few more. I'm sure they'll be joining, but we're going to get going here. So thanks for joining us for our next webinar in our series for the OpenText D2 Life Sciences Solution Suite. Today we're going to focus in on the quality and manufacturing solution. So just a little about the agenda today and the speakers. So I'm Larissa Primavera, Sales Director for FME US, and our guests today and guest presenters are Frank Dentrone, President of FME US, and Manuela Bernhard. She's a Managing Consultant for us here again at FME US. So we're going to talk today a little bit about who we are, and then we'll give you an overview of the D2 Life Sciences Quality and Manufacturing module. And then we'll jump into the demonstration. At the end, of course, we'll have a Q&A session as well for you to ask any questions you may have. And we're just going to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So the GoToWebinar automatically has folks in listen-only mode, so you are muted. At the end of the session, you can direct questions to the chat, to the organizer in the chat. So any questions you may have, we'll read aloud and answer them accordingly. And the session is being recorded, and you can share later or go back and view and share with your colleagues. So with that, I turn it over to Frank.
Okay, thanks, Larissa, for the introduction, and I'll segue to the next slide here. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a little background of myself and FME, put a little context of who we are. And then I'll go through kind of a recap, if you will, of what we covered in our first segment, which was more of the D2 Life Sciences suite overview. So I'll do a little recap, and then I'll cover a few slides regarding the main theme for today, which is the quality and manufacturing module of the D2 Life Sciences suite. And then, as Larissa mentioned, I'll transition it over to Manuela on my team, and she'll walk us through a demo of some key functions and behavior of the solution, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So again, my name is Frank Dentrone, President of FME, covering US and Canada. We started the company in the US back in 2010, but there's quite a heritage of in the marketplace with FME from a global perspective, where we were founded in 1995 in Germany. So we have a number of offices throughout Germany, and we also have our colleagues in Romania that support us on a number of activities related to our migration product portfolio, as well as other engagements that we work on with customers. But where we see ourselves as a professional services organization, we partner with the customers related to digital transformation, predominantly in the life sciences industry. We cover industrial manufacturing, and we mention more. We do other industries, especially when it comes down to data migration. So we do cover other aspects of industries, but that's what that definition of more, for those who might be curious, and what the more means. We do most of our activities in enterprise content management, and particularly in the United States, but we also provide consultation around business intelligence, cloud technologies, big data, and social collaboration. And in some cases, customers ask us to provide our development expertise in tailored software development, predominantly in mobility and things of that nature. But we do cover the full, let's say, life cycle of engagements, consulting, concepts, development activities. And we also provide maintenance or service level agreement contracts with customers, and we do provide our migration product, which is under the products banner. We have about 190 employees globally, to put context on who we are and our capacity. And our last bullet here, which some folks chuckle a little bit, but we do take it serious. We do want to be that vendor, that partner, that trusted advisor, the company that you love to work with. So we do take that serious. So let's dive into the main theme for today. So OpenText Documentum in the life science. So there's some highlights here. OpenText has been in the life sciences industry for many years, leading content management platform, in the past 25 years, covering 100% of the top 10 pharmas using Documentum, OpenText Documentum. 95% of those top 50 pharma companies are using OpenText Documentum, and 90% of the top 10 biotech companies. So this, just to give you a little substance on the market and where the OpenText Documentum suite or portfolio is living in the current marketplace. So quite some strength in the market. It's just a little highlight of kind of where we've been. So for those who've been around the Documentum portfolio for a while, this might resonate with you, but this is just sort of a visual of where we've been over the years. Up in the upper left corner, you'll notice that's a web client, but it's what you would imagine the web top, for those who are familiar with web top. And that's transitioned into, for the life sciences suite, the D2 framework, where you have a prepackaged, and we're going to talk about Q&M today, a solution based on industry best practices and things of that nature that we'll touch on today. And on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see another web experience and a mobility experience, which is founded on the life sciences, the Life Science Express. This is the LEAP platform. So we're not going to cover that in any length today, but it is, that transition, that experience that the end user community is really looking for. And I've seen this transition over the years, and I feel we're in a very good position right now, especially in terms of this solution suite for our customers. So this was a slide I covered during the overview, and so this is the full suite, and it covers a few things here. For one, at the very top is the main context of today's session from a suite perspective, but we're going to cover the quality and manufacturing module, so kind of put a context on that. But across the stack, there's a number of services that are part of the suite, that are part of the Documentum platform itself. And then, we have an FME services layer underneath that stack where we're providing our, business experience as well as technology expertise and subject matter expertise. So just to have this slide as a back reference in case there's any questions that towards the end of this session or as a follow-up to this session today, feel free to reach out to any of us at FME, and we can certainly field those questions either during the session or post-session. So the life sciences suite, the general features, again, we're going to massage this behavior or this capabilities during the demo, but the suite itself comes with a predefined set of business rules for workflow, life cycle, the ability to manage permissions or access control across the process of the document management, or especially the quality and manufacturing process, where you have change requests and your SOPs and work instructions and things of that nature. So the solution comes pre-packaged, pre-bundled, based on a number of industry best practices. In addition to that, there's a pre-configured set of workspaces, and you'll see what that experience is going to look like, and it's predominantly role-based. So Manuela, my team, when she gets into the demo, she'll touch on a number of these characteristics in terms of workspace and based on role. So you'll have authors, reviewer, approvers, coordinators, which have additional capability, especially when it comes down to the quality and manufacturing module. And then there's some administrative oversight capabilities, and then general consumption or consumer roles. And just to kind of put a little more substance to what you're going to see in the demo is that the hierarchy, or that data model or more like a taxonomy hierarchy, is baked into the solution based on, again, EDM or DI reference models. So this was embraced, the solution has embraced those industry best practices, the DI reference model, EDM model, to come up with that hierarchy. As well, both foldering structure as well as document identity or artifact. What you'll notice, you'll see in here the nomenclature of artifact. Think of an artifact as it gives a document an identity, and that's again founded on the EDM DI reference model. And then the foldering structure has embraced that. So the notion of the solution is that give the document context, and the solution will file it and organize it in a way that makes sense from a business process and best practice. And you'll see that in the demo today. So quality manufacturing, some highlights. I think I touched a little bit of these points, but I'll just briefly go through them before we get into the demo. It's an out-of-the-box solution. It's enabling or managing the creation of review and approval and the release of controlled quality and manufacturing documentation. So there's quite a in-depth inventory of documents that are managed within the quality and manufacturing module. which dovetails into, standard life cycling and workflow. And again, I'll reiterate, it's based off industry best practices over years of experience, both from the user community, partners like FME and others, as well as customers feeding into that best practice. And that's really the foundation of the solution, including role-based security, which is very important, and having a more modern user experience based on the D2 framework is definitely a major highlight and enhancement from an end user usability perspective. And at the end of the day, this ensures compliance and good, GMP standards. So key capabilities, we'll touch on as much as we can given our time for today, around authoring and review or collaborative workflow experience, configurable views, watermarking capability as part of the document process and document state, like draft and approved and effective, things of that nature. The ability to see or show the automation around metadata inheritance, so selecting certain key data elements or metadata elements while creating content and having the solution propagate certain data elements automatically. So there's a number of automated activities going on within the solution to minimize the amount of the necessity for a lot of user intervention in terms of populating certain data elements within the solution. And what's near and dear to most of our hearts, I would say, from a data or compliance perspective, 21 CFR Part 11 around audit trail and records management, approvals, the e-signatures. We'll touch on a number of those areas during the demo. And then you'll see through the role-based views, you can kind of configure that experience where you want to see certain things. Each user has sort of a certain pattern of how they work. There's some flexibility in how you can configure your particular experience or workspace from an end user point of view. And then there's query forms, which allows you to, question, putting in a quick piece of metadata into a query form screen to get to the information or content that you're looking for, and having the ability to use mobile devices. I don't think we'll cover the mobility piece of it in this session today, but again, the solution does work on Safari, so it can work on your tablets and mobile devices, generally speaking, and also the Leap platform, which is another solution that is geared towards its cloud native technology that has mobility capabilities. Just a few screenshots, and then we'll get into the real demo, and you'll see it active or real time. So here you'll see the workspace, you'll see a foldering structure on the left-hand side, and then some highlights around the types of documents that you can manage within the quality manufacturing module. So SOPs and policies, there's a change management or CR process, change control or change request process. There's a TBR, to be read workflow capability, training material. There's the DHF for those who are possibly medical device customers. There's a number of things that were enhanced in the recent release of the solution regarding medical devices. So design history file, device master record. So there's a lot of capability around medical devices now. I know that there was a first implementation of it in the 4.1 release, but they really enhanced it, especially in the 4.3 release for medical devices. And then you'll see throughout the demo watermarking, and I think we'll cover control print, but it's another key aspect of the solution. So here's the authoring. We're going to see this in the demo, but it's good for those who are not in the meeting today, but we'll have this in the recording for those who couldn't attend. But here's just a little visual of what the user experience looks like from an authoring perspective. And Manuel and my team will touch on this, key aspects of that experience throughout the demo. And then here is an example property screen where when you're creating an SOP, what data elements are asked of the end user around what site would this document be associated to. It could be more than one applicable area, and who's responsible for this particular SOP, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a number of key data elements that are part of the solution, and certain attributes are required with the little red asterisk, and you'll see that throughout the demo today. And here is a reviewer, like a review and approval experience, a task view, if you will. So you can see the different tasks that are in your inbox, and then based on the task in hand, you'll be able to see, what document is attached to that particular workflow activity, as well as the affected document. If this was, you know, a change control or change request, you'll be able to see the affected documents that are associated to that CR, and then a preview and other metadata that you could see on the right-hand part of the screen. But we'll see this throughout the demo. So now I'm going to transition to the demo. So I'm going to give Manuela on my team permissions. I'm going to give her presenter rights, and then we will jump into the demo segment of the session today.
Then I will take over from here and walk you through a quick demo of the Q&M solution for Documentum for Life Sciences. So what we want to do is we want to walk through some typical use cases that you will cover when working with the LSCAM solution. So first of all, I want to log in with an author user and walk you through activities of this user. So let me do that. So I'm logged in as an author user for the Boston site. So one important thing to note for the LSCAM solution is that it is set up site-based. So the folder structure and permissions are based on the site that a user belongs to. So there can be specific locations, or there can also be global sites that users are associated to, and from where they can access their documents. What you might have seen in previous demos is the basic layout of the application. So you have a folder navigation structure like Frank was showing you in the screenshots. We have the document list where we see our current documents for our selected folder. And then we have different widgets that provide additional information for the document that I'm working with. So we will see that as part of the demo. So for example, I selected this document here that I created in the past. I can see the versions for this document. I can see different format renditions. I can see which folder locations it's stored in, audit information, and any workflows that were started for this document, just to give you a quick overview here. On the right-hand side, I can see a quick PDF preview that is generated for the document. So I have a quick look, into my document, and I can also access the properties, for example, for the document. So I have a right-click menu that offers additional capabilities, so I can walk through the document properties and route it through workflows, etc. So there's a wide range of functionalities, and through the key ones I want to walk you through. So we want to start with creating a new document, and then we'll route it through an approval process. So what I actually want to do is I want to create policy document. So this document is a so-called category 1 document. So what that means is just those are the most strict documents in the Q&M solution. So to bring or to make such a document effective in the system, I will actually have to create a change request, approve that change request, and only after that I will be able to route this document for approval and make it effective and visible for the end users. So I selected policy as primary group. Based on the primary group, I have different subgroups available that are provided in the system. So those definitions come out of the EDRM reference model, but usually there will be some configuration changes made as part of the project. So there can be additional subgroups added, or subgroups can be removed that are not needed for your specific use cases. So I want to create one for the subgroup information technology. And in the next screen, I will see the properties that have to be selected for this document. So all the mandatory attributes are highlighted with a red asterisk, so I know that those are the ones that I will have to fill out. So I'm just going to give it a title. I can see which sites it is associated to. I actually had a document selected in the background. So what it did for me is that it already took over some of the attributes of the document that I had selected previously. So I'm able to reuse information from existing documents to make the process to fill out the property screens a bit easier. So I can select one or multiple sites, and as mentioned previously, those have impact on the folder structure and also on the permissions that are set for the document. I can select one or multiple applicable areas. So those are like departments that want to filter for documents that are relevant for them. So I can select one or multiple values here. Then I can select a responsible user who will be informed, and I can select the artifact name. So in our case, the artifact name matches the subgroup, but in some cases, you can use this to have another level of classification and a more granular classification. So you could split that up in more granular categories. I can specify whether those are training relevant documents, and then there's some other information that I can provide for the document. Once I filled out all the mandatory fields, I can proceed to the next screen. And what will excuse me, what will happen now is that I receive a template selection. So in the system, there can be one or multiple templates stored, which are based on those specific artifacts. So the user can select which template to use. I think in our case, we might just have one template, so it goes directly over to the next screen, where it opens the template for me so that I can directly edit it. So this was the template that was used in the background. Of course, these will be templates specific to your company that you can store in the system, and actually those templates also go through a review and approval process, so only approved templates will be visible for the user. So I'm just gonna save my document, and then I will check it in and upload my new policy document. What I can see here now is that my policy document received a unique name. So there are auto-naming rules in the background that are specific to the different subgroups in the system. Also, those auto-naming rules can be configured. They can be adjusted to the specific needs of your company. But what you can see here is also that it uses, for example, an auto-numbering so that each document will receive a unique number. Also, we can see here that a lifecycle status draft was assigned. And this lifecycle status is also available here as watermark on the PDF version of the document. So whenever I view or export a document, it will have this watermark imprinted. Now what I want to do is I want to push this new policy to effective state. But as I mentioned earlier, is that those governance and procedure documents, so you can also see it was automatically linked into this folder structure underneath the information technology subgroup that I had selected previously. But to be able to push it through to effective state, I will need to create a change request first. So I want to do that next. I'm going to select my document in the background, and I'm going to call the new document creation function again, but this time I will select the change request for the document creation. So also here some initial information is pre-filled for me based on my document that I have selected in the background. And then I have to provide some additional information that is highlighted to be able to store my change request. Oh, this is actually a list, so I can select from the list. So we have a process change here. That's why we need to create a new policy. And if I, for example, have some external system where I'm tracking all the changes, like a TrackWise or a similar system, I can also put a reference code here to be able to trace back to the entry in my other external systems. So next I will proceed. Also here for change requests, I have the options to create templates in the background that have to be filled out during the process. But I could also create a change request just as a metadata only object. So that's a configuration option. So here I could fill in all my change request details. So this would be also a template specific to your company. Once I'm done filling in all the information, I will finish this process as well. And I can see that my change request got created under my Boston site. And change requests have a different folder structure than regular documents. They actually move according to their lifecycle states into the different folders from draft to full review for approval until change in progress CIP. Once a change is in this state CIP, I'm actually able to approve and make effective my document that's associated. Also here, an automatic number was provided and a PDF version was generated. But what I want to see here is now I need to have my documents associated to the change request. And because I had the document selected initially when I created this new change request, I can see that it is linked underneath here as a child to my change request. So the change request is represented as a so-called virtual document, a compound document, and one or multiple documents can be associated to it and can be routed through the change process. So I would also be able here to add additional documents if needed. For each document that is part of the change request, there is some additional information that needs to be provided. So here I have my affected documents, and I will need to specify here what is the specific change for this document as part of this whole change request process. So in our case, this is a new document, not a revision. I can select a user that should be modified. I'm selecting the coordinator user. Our impact is low. And this is a new policy, or I can also reference a different text that was already stored in the document here. So once I specified this information, I can close out the screen, and I'm ready to route my change request through the approval process. So for that, in my review, if I go in my right-click menu, in my context menu, I will see that there are different workflows available that I can choose from. For example, there's a collaborative editing, and what that allows users for change requests or also more for the actual documents that are being routed is to work in parallel on a document and to add review comments. So what happens in the background is that for each user, a copy of the document gets created with the track changes turned on, and each user can do their modifications and add their comments with track changes activated. Then the final version will go to the coordinator user, and all the changes will be merged together in one document, and the user coordinator user can decide which of the changes to accept, which of the changes to reject, to create a consolidated copy of the document. Then we have a combined review and approval workflow. So in this case, the document will first go to a set of reviewer users that can make modifications to the document. And after the review is completed, it will go to the approver users that just sign off on the document. Or the simple version is to just route the document directly for approval. So in that case, the review could have happened in advance in the system, and only the approvers need to sign up on it. So for this document, we're just going to route it directly for approval for now. When I start such a workflow, I have to select the one or multiple users that this document will go to. So the requester of this document is the author. Then I have to select the approver who this will go to. So we have here user Boston approver that I will select, and then I will go to the coordinator user for acknowledgement. Additionally, I could add additional attachments to the document, like documents that provide like more helpful information for the reviewers or approvers. And I can also specify, for example, a follow-up date. So if the workflow is not completed, then reminders will be sent out to the users. So I will start this workflow process. And now what I can see here in my workflow widget is that a new workflow was started and is in running state. And this gives me a bit of an overview of what's happening, which tasks are already completed. So far only the start has been completed. So I'm going to log in now as the approver user. So each of those different roles, as Frank had mentioned, has a slightly different workspace or a slightly different experience. And also this can be configured as part of the setup of the application. So approver users are mostly focused on the approval process. So they will work mostly within this screen. So here I can see now I have a new task received, a new workflow that was started for my change request. So I can see my change request document. I can see my PDF preview. I can also see the properties that were provided. And also what I can see is my affected documents that are associated to this change request. So I can review those as well as part of the approval process. So also here I have my preview, I have the properties that I can review. If everything looks good, I can approve. Otherwise, I can reject it and it will go back to the user who started the workflow. Also, one note here is I can see any notes that were entered by previous users. We will have a look at that in the next workflow that we run. For now, I will just approve this document. So for most of the approvals, an electronic signature is necessary. So I have to provide my username and password, and I have to select the intention, the justification for the approval. This justification is also a configurable list. Those are so-called dictionaries that are stored in the system, and that can be adjusted to your specific needs. Okay, so I have approved the document, and it will next go to the coordinator for the final acknowledgement. So I will log in as the coordinator. And now when I go to the task list of my coordinator user, I can see a task here that was just generated, that there's a new change request that requires my acknowledgement. Same as the approver, I have access to all the information for this specific document, and I can just acknowledge it. So I know, okay, the change request is ready, and now we can actually start working on the document and routing this for the approval process. So now I'm just going to go back to my original author user. So my change request has now disappeared from my draft folder. But instead, I can now see that it was moved over to the status change in progress, CIP. And I also can see that my workflow has switched to the finished status. Now I can see here when tasks were completed. So I have all the detail history in my workflow summary down here. Additionally, I also have audit trail where I can review all the steps that were run or executed. So now I'm ready to route my actual document for the approval process. I go back to my document that we created, which was an information technology document. I now have the ability to say, okay, I want to route this one for review and approval. So we can see here again that we have multiple workflows available, same as for the change request. So we can go ahead and route the document. Okay, so now we're at the actual category 1 document, and this document requires an additional approval step. So there are additional quality approvers because of the quality that have to sign up on the document as well. So I will go ahead and select all the users that will be part of this process. So we have a reviewer user, then we have the actual approver who will come into play after. And again, this could be multiple users. Just to keep an eye on time, we're just going to select one user for each of the categories. This is the actual quality approver for the final review. And then we have the document coordinator. And with that information, I will go ahead and start the workflow, but all my options are otherwise the same that I can select here. So we're first going to start off with the reviewer user. So the reviewer user has now just received the new task with my new policy document that I have assigned here. Again, I can see all the available information, and I could also go ahead and make changes to the document as well. Once I'm done with all the changes, so I can say I have reviewed the document without comments, which means pretty much to pass it on to the next step in the process, which would be the approval process. In case I have any relevant changes, I would review it with comments, and in that case, it will go back to the author user to make sure that those comments are all incorporated before the document gets sent to the approver. So we're going to do a review without comments here. And I will confirm that I reviewed the document. So the review user does not need to provide an electronic signature in this case, but can just pass on the document. So I still have my approver user here, and I will refresh the inbox and see if anything new came in for that user. Okay, let me see if it was the coordinator. Okay, got myself confused. Okay, there it is. Sorry about that. And that's not it either. Okay, so what we do in this case, so I can show you a good example, is we will have a look at the workflow that is assigned to the document. So we have the workflow that's currently running. Okay, so let's have a look at the reviewer inbox. Okay, sorry. So it didn't actually get triggered. There we go. So we just have a look at our workflow now. So now this task should have been passed on from the reviewer user. And now the approver user has the running task. So this is a good way to track. So now we have our approver user. So it might just have taken a moment in the background. And there we have our task. So it was previously reviewed and passed on by the user. So again, here I can approve and reject, and I can also add notes to the workflow. Those notes will appear down here, and they will be available for the next users in the approval process. So as an approver user, I will have to sign off on the document. And again, it will pass on to the next user. So as we have here now those special category 1 documents, we will have this step of the quality approval. So this is now a user from the quality area who has to sign off on the document. And this user received this task as well and can see the comments of all users that have worked with this document previously. So also this user will now sign off on the document and has to provide a signature. And now we've gone through the whole approval process, and the final task will go to the coordinator with the information that this document has completed the process. And there will also, just an additional note here, there will also be, of course, email notification be sent to the users so they are aware of the tasks in their inbox. Now, as this user, I can now accept the task. And I can now decide if I want to set the effective date and send it directly out for another review, or if I just want to set the effective date, but then close out the process. So I choose the second option. And I can now set the planned effective date for my document. So I can say, okay, this document should become effective tomorrow. Additionally, I can also review the periodic review that is defined for the date. So there's a configuration in the system that defines the periodic review interval and also how many days in advance to that interval the users should start the process of reviewing and updating the document. That's the review start date. And I can make adjustments of this here. And also I can set users for a TBR distribution list if this is needed for this specific document. So I will finish this process. And I go back to my author user to see what the document now looks like. So I can see now that the document went to release pending state. So that means it went through the whole process, but it is not effective yet because the effective date is set to tomorrow, to the next date. Now when I go to my coordinator user, let's have a look at this user and go to our document. I now have the ability to say, I want to make this document effective immediately. So I want this document to be pushed out to the user. So I have to confirm. Oops. And we haven't completed the workflow yet. So let's have a look which task is pending. Okay. Now it is completed. So it just took a moment in the background. So sometimes there are processes running in the background that need a moment to complete. So and now we can see our document was moved over to effective state. And also the version label has changed to 1.0. Our lifecycle was finished. And now when I have effective document, I can launch the periodic review workflow if there are changes necessary. I can withdraw this document by using an according workflow, or I can also use for example, control print function to print this document. So for this, there's a specific widget available here. Okay, it's already added. Let's see. Oh, here it was added. Okay. So we don't have any printers configured, so I won't be able to show you the full process. But there is a control print functionality that will track your prints that are sent to specific recipients that can be selected here with a specific print reason as well. And there are print profiles that can be created and stored in the system to apply specific watermarkings, etc., to your control print documents. And what you can see here as well is, so you can do the control print, and you have also functions for reprinting and recall of control prints, or to run reporting on the prints that have been generated. One more item I wanted to point out to you is the search capability. So when I search for documents, it generates a so-called faceted search in my search results screen. So this allows you to drill down in your search results. So for example, I just search for a policy, but I can say here, okay, I'm actually just interested in information technology documents, and I will find the document that we just created as part of this webinar. So this is a nice ability to search through documents and to, similar like in an Amazon, to narrow down your search results step by step. Additionally, you also have advanced search capabilities as well, and also predefined search screens that can be configured in the application, just to give you a quick summary of the search capabilities. And one more item to point out also is, now when I have my policy document and I want to know like in which change request was this document actually included, I have my locations widget, which shows for one thing the folder structures that this document is linked to, but also the change requests that this document has been part of. So much for category 1 documents. There are other documents that can be managed within the Q&M solution as well, which are categories that require less workflow steps or are less restrictive in their use. For example, training documents or manuals. So those can be managed within this application as well, just to provide you with a quick overview. I think this concludes what I wanted to show as part of this demo.
So we did the demo, and now we're going to open it up for questions. So if you, I guess Larissa, we could check the chat if there was any questions that were provided in the chat window. So you can still put questions if they're coming to mind right now, and I will just give it a moment, Larissa, I guess, to give some folks an opportunity to post any questions they may have.
Sure thing. Yeah, if anything comes to mind that you have questions on, you can put them in the section there in the chat, right in the chat, and we'll get them. And Frank, I think we just wanted to mention there should be one more slide there.
Yeah.
Series,
So,
yep.
Sure, let's do that. You want to go over that real quick, Larissa?
Yeah, so as you're aware, this is the second one in our series of the OpenText Documentum Life Sciences Solution Suite. So we do have one already slated on the calendar for October 19th, should be 11 a.m. as well, for research and development module. And then we're still in plans and nailing down dates for the electronic trial master file and submission, store, and view. So those will follow on, hopefully concluding this year. December is a difficult month, but hopefully we'll get that done this year. So if you have interest in that, the link is there already to register. Frank, I think we have some questions coming in. So is the security in the solution site specific? A lot of S's on that one.
Sure. Yeah. So I know Manuela had shown on the screen there was the ability to pick, more than one site. So the way that the solution is configured is that, depending on one or many sites, there is a security layer or a group, a role sort of security group model per site. So you can have access or restrictive access to at a site level. So the answer would be yes, there is a site-oriented security framework. But I also want to mention that, if you are onboarded as a user, you could be onboarded to one or more sites. So the security model will accommodate users that either are on one site or can span more than one site as well. So that should fulfill that particular question.
I think you led on to the next question someone had. If I had users that are Q&M that may need to perform activities for R&D, is that possible?
Okay, so across the modules then. So yeah, I mean, I've heard that style of question before, with other customers. So yeah, there is so the way the framework is designed, so there's definitely the different modules. So, you may buy the suite, the whole suite, or you might buy particular modules. So the way it works is that, a particular user might be, performing a role from a quality manufacturing point of view. So they would be onboarded, into those groups and roles in the Q&M module. But you can also be a person that's in clinical, but for that matter, on the R&D side, working on protocols or something like that. So as long as you're onboarded in the right groups and role, the role group model, you would have access to the behavior, the functionality across the two different, life science suite modules. So yeah, you can be a person, a user that's performing work across the different modules. Yes, that is possible, and that's that's just putting folks in the right role and group.
Okay, and then actually we did have a question about roles. So there's a lot of different role-based views. So what types of roles are available? Manuela did show some, but what other roles would be available?
I think so. We covered the author, the more classical ones, the author, review, approver. There is I think you mentioned it, Manuel, the quality. There's a quality function or quality role, quality organizational role. That's part of the process. There's the coordinator. From a Q&M perspective, they're performing where they're setting the effectivity date, or there's some things that the coordinator can do that no one else can. And also the coordinator or business admin, those two roles, if you will, have access to certain pick lists or dictionaries, drop down values, things like that you want those types of administrative activities in, let's say, kind of a business admin role, not necessarily a full IT function. There are things in the solution that would be more IT oriented, but the business admin, that role, that coordinator role has additional elevated capability. So those are the roles: review, approver, author, review, approver, coordinator. There's that quality organization. There's another role that I wanted to mention. In the different modules, for eTMF, there's additional roles. So I guess depending on the module, there's a variety of roles that can be possible, like an auditor, consumer. There's a consumer role where you have just read-only access. And also there's the notion of external users as well. And there's a number of groups and roles that fulfill from an external user perspective. So quite a number of things. I think when we get into the next modules, we'll touch on that. It's a good question. Manuel and I will touch on those types of things in the R&D segment, as well as eTMF and SSV, submission store view.
Okay. I don't see any questions additionally coming in yet, Frank. About 4 minutes to spare, so we'll give folks another minute to maybe put a question in. But you can definitely reach us if anything arises after at either one of our emails, but the main one is info@fme-us.com. So if you need to reach us, you can definitely send a note there and we will get it.
Sure, yeah, I think if we get additional questions, we can respond to them, right, Larissa? So anyone that thinks of one, after this session, if they send an email to info@fme-us.com, then we can field those questions as well. Then I will go to our last slide, our slogan. It's FME you love to work with. So I do appreciate everyone's time who was able to join today. Definitely appreciate that, and we're looking forward to you, or if you have colleagues that you think that may benefit from, to join the additional segments that we're covering, R&D and eTMF and SSV. Definitely, forward that link along, and hopefully we see you in the next segment.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks, Manuela. Wishing everyone on the line a great day, and hope to be in touch soon.